The Gauteng provincial government is calling on victims and families of those impacted by the Life Esidimeni incident to lodge their claims for payment of compensation by the 30th of this month. It comes as the Life Esidimeni inquest into the deaths of 141 patients draws to a close. The inquest was to determine liability and the cause of the horrific deaths of the patients who were moved from the Life Esidimeni health facility to NGOs in 2016. Christine Nxumalo is from the Life Esidimeni Family Committee. Christine, good evening to you. Thanks for your time tonight. Let's firstly kick it off with the inquest officially coming to an end. Yes, you might not have the outcomes yet, but what are your expectations right now?
Good afternoon, Kathy, and thank you for having me. Our expectations is obviously for Judge Defo to, I suppose, say that these people need to be charged, and that the deaths are actually linked to them.
And of course,
that's what we actually. Sorry.
Yeah, and of course, it can be quite a strenuous process because while one can look at the deaths that happened and treat them generally, when it comes to some of the matters that will then have to be dealt with, I'm sure, the state will be getting ready to line up whatever causes of death are ultimately determined.
No, that's true. It's going to be very strenuous. And also the fact that, once she's ruled, we still have to go through a whole criminal process, a court process.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be an easy process. We're still very far from the end of this process.
It's a long journey, but let's talk about a journey that has started and is now really nearing its conclusion. And this is on the issue of claims. What is the process of claiming, particularly for those families that are beneficiaries of what the monies that have been made available to those who have suffered as a result of this tragedy? What have the families been saying to you?
Yeah, see, that process has been very difficult and unfortunately not as easy as we had hoped it would be. As you know, after the arbitration, after the award by former Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneke, is that families, other than the ones who were represented at the arbitration, could come forward and claim. So because there were a few family members who were, how can I put it, unfairly compensated, meaning that not the right family member was compensated, the Office of the Premier then embarked on another process to bring on board the Master's Office. And in that process, instead of the full amount being paid, a split of 50-50 was agreed upon, where the families would get 50% and the remaining 50% was then to be held by the Master's Office on behalf of the mental health care user. So families, when they needed to take care of the family of the mental health care user, would then approach the Master's Office and claim. But unfortunately, Kathy, this process has not been easy. The 50% to majority of the families that claimed was paid. But the remaining 50%, which is meant for the mental health care user, to access that 50% has been incredibly difficult. But also it was just a fraction of families who claimed, because apparently only 414, according to the Office of the Premier, have gone through that process and been verified. So there is still, I think, a number of 30-something that has not been paid that are still going through the process. But remember, 1,400, if I'm not mistaken, families were moved. So there's a huge gap in numbers that we are not actually, that we cannot verify and find out where they are. But I suppose we've waited for a very long time for families to come forward. But then again, this whole process was flawed. Yeah. So I don't know what to say, how to close it off with.
Christine, it's really unfortunate that more often than not, when you deal with people that have to interact with the master, these are never easy processes because that office in and of itself experiences incredible delays. So when it comes to the specific issues that you've picked up in particular, around the mental health care users, as you've described them, that need to access these funds? What is making it so difficult?
You know, the funny part is we've had several meetings with the new DG, Edward Musue, and we have not gotten to the bottom of what is the issue in accessing these funds. As you say, dealing with the master's office is not an easy process. Some of the families have complained that they would submit what is required from the master's office, but they would be sent back and other documents, you know, from the doctors or whatever would be requested. And unfortunately for some families, it's not an easy process, because just moving from one place to the other, going from the hospital, going to the master's office is not an easy process. So these are some of the things that we've complained about and saying that, but the master's office is not making it easy. If they are meant to look after the mental health care user, then why are they making it even more difficult? But unfortunately, we're waiting for answers. We've asked them, the DG's office to try and get easier ways for families to actually access this money. But we wait and see, Kathy.
Let's talk about the deadline that's coming up at the end of this month, and this is really for those that have not yet come forward to make any claims.
And the families didn't even know about it, is that the date was gazetted for the end of September. And then we asked for an extension. In fact, we had requested an extension to end of January. But they basically said, no, they can't do that. And so the end of November is the final date by which families can claim. Even if they had inquired and at least submitted their details, it means, at least within this period, then it means they can still continue even after the 30th to process or to do what is required. But at least they must have contacted the Office of the Premier by the 30th of November.
All right. Christine Nxumalo, thank you so much for coming onto the show. And as you're saying, it's been a really long road, and unfortunately will continue to be that for you and many of the families that are affected. You'll see on the bottom of your screen the details for those families who have not yet claimed, or even if you want to send inquiries to check if you would qualify, at the number to dial 0800 228827. The email address life.esidimeni@gauteng.gov.za.